Hey guys, so this is part of a kind of a two-part video. So originally I was going to do the serpentine belt replacement with a tensioner pulley replacement, and then upon completion of that it had some issues while torquing down to 100 foot-pound torque, which is recommended for the lug nuts. And as you can see, you can probably see what those issues are. There's two of them, and technically there's a third one I think back here. Basically the studs that connect to the wheel hub actually broke off. So what I'm in the process of doing, or I've already done, is actually torn it all the way apart, put it all back together, and was going to walk you guys through the process that I went through to actually accomplish that. So biggest thing I could say about this is like everything is patience, and make sure no matter what, whenever you finish a project, make sure you inspect your studs on your wheel wells. I don't know if you can see that, but that's obviously the piece that snapped off. And it did show obvious wear, and I'll show you again once we get in there, but you could see the thickness throughout was not even, and I saw it on one. There was obviously two others I did not notice, so I call that out. Anytime you're doing brake pads, rotors, or anything on when you take the wheel off, inspect it, because this could have been extremely dangerous. I did actually talk to a few other friends, both like who work at parts stores, and then also who worked at car dealerships. What's believed to happen, since I do all my own work except for oil changes, just because I find it's easier and it's not too expensive, and then they do more of a holistic view to see if there's anything else I'm missing. Anyways, while doing that, my guess is they put back on my tires, did not torque them to spec, maybe put them to 80 foot-pounds instead of 100, and then it kind of vibrated, and that's what I've heard that probably caused that kind of uneven wearness within the stud on the hub wheel. So again, whenever you take these off, just inspect your studs. I can't say that enough. I mean, I never did honestly until now, because I mean, this is so dangerous. Wheel could have came off while driving and shit with my family. So again, that's a lesson learned kind of thing, right? So pay more attention to that. Other things to call out, I open my brake reservoir before I start, and no, just having the right tools. So we'll do another video here shortly on the tool part. Thank you. Hey guys, so the next part we'll talk about is actual tools and items needed for this. Some of this is going to be more needed for when we put it back together and cleaning, so I won't worry too much about those, but the items you're going to need for tearing it apart, we'll go over that. First is clamp. We're going to use a clamp actually to clamp the brake line, so we don't have to worry about it leaking. Flat screwdriver, we'll use that on the rotor later to help separate the nut. WD-40 to obviously help things go in and out. Brake cleaner to actually help break up rust and other fun-filled stuff. Scoot you over here. So I do have a torque. This is going to be the T40, I believe it is. Yeah, so on mine, on the rotors, there's a screw in there that has to be removed. Braking bars, some cheats. Don't worry about anything past this. Like I said, this is going to be for installation. Like I got the new studs. I got some new rubber boots for the calipers, for the guide pins to go into, which obviously then I'll probably use the silicone paste on. I do have the 19mm full socket. That's used for taking out the lug nuts. I highly recommend going with the full size. Mine were half. I used that, and I noticed it was never really fitting the nuts well, and it was stripping them. So I did eventually just buy another one, because I should have a while ago. Half-inch extension, quarter, 3/8, half-inch sockets. I got 8mm. Everything here is going to be in millimeters. Call that out, I guess, now. So I got an 8mm little wrench. I've got 18mm, 17mm, 8mm, 14. So 18, 17, 14, 8, and a long 8, which we use for the ABS sensor, and then an extension, which I think I use in the ABS sensor as well. What else? I think the next piece is what we got on the ground. So I do have a rubber hammer. I also have a normal small hammer, which I find easier to work on with small cars and small spaces. I have a slide hammer, which we're going to use to separate the axle from the wheel hub, and then also the axle puller, which again is used with the axle slide hammer to separate the wheel hub from it. That's it for tools I used. I do have some other small items here I guess I can call out, but those are more personal. So I do have a separate LED light which I use on the ground, jack, and a little seat off to the right. You can see that makes it a little easier, and then a trash bucket. But that's it. So next piece we'll start walking into on how to tearing it down. Alright guys, so the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to take the lug nuts off the wheel. Like I said, most of this I've already done, or actually I did the whole thing already, so I left it loose. So a lot of this you won't see me muck around too much, but I'll just walk you through it, and then hopefully it'll be fast video so you can pause it as need be. But like I said, for me to do this off and on, it took me 3 to 4 days because I didn't have all the tools, I didn't have all the parts, and honestly I was reading my service manual and then looking online to kind of gain better knowledge of how to do all this. So I'll call that stuff out. I think it's important as I go along. So first thing, let's take the lug nuts off. Take my 1/2 inch and basically just gonna go in there with the 19mm to start loosening those up. And they're already obviously loose, but that's what it is. Get my feet underneath there. And as you can see, these things just fall right out. So I'm gonna put that down. Don't need the 19mm socket or anything anymore. Off the side. Don't know how much you really need to see this part, but again, trying to make sure you can see. Alright. So let me slide that off. Alright, so the next thing I worked on was actually just taking apart the brake caliper. And I left, you can see in there I already have the line pinched. That's going to be right there. Better angle. That's better. So you see I already pinched the brake line. So this should be really easy because I don't have to worry about any leak, but I have my bucket here to catch it originally because obviously there was a lot of runoff. Not a lot, but there was enough that I didn't want it all over the floor. You can also kind of see in the background I do on my CRC brake cleaner because whenever I started this project, all I was doing was trying to clean the brake at the same time because everything was kind of really hard. So for ease sake, let's go ahead and remove the brake line. That's right there, that's simple, that's fast. Switch back out the 19mm. I believe this was a 17mm. Nope, too big. 14mm. It was one of the two. Yep, 14mm. So I'm going to take 14mm. Bring my extension just because I like it. There we go. Bring my bucket over just in case. You guys, so you can see all this. This is pretty easy. Like I said, I left all this loose. So when it goes back in, of course, I'll have to be torqued to spec, but tearing it apart, making an easy video for you guys to get that for, that was the hardest thing I thought. So let that hang back there. That's done. Next thing is the guide pins on the caliper. Those I believe were 17mm. Let me double check. Let's see. 17mm. Yep, 17mm. So I'll work on those next. There's going to be two. One at the top, you can see there, and then one at the bottom, which is right there. And both those are basically connecting the guide pins. So if I can get a good view from there. Let's see. There you go. You can kind of see part of it. Top one you won't be able to see, but you get the idea. So I'm going to use a 17mm to take this off. Actually, I should say probably even leaving this little snug or on there would be nice too, because, well, if you want to take out the actual brake pads, which I already did, but I put them back in just for the video. So we'll actually start with removing the bottom one, then we can just take the brake pads out real quick. Best angles I can. let's see if that's loose enough. I get that out by hand. It's coming out. Brake clean out of the way. Now, these will look dry to you. Again, I cleaned these when I took them out. I'm also going to replace the boots. So what you expect to see, you may not see in this, and that's mostly because I've been starting the cleanup process to already put in the new stuff. So try not to worry about that. All right, that's the bottom one. Now, usually what I would do is I'd actually take a big C-clamp. I have an 8-inch, and I'd compress these so that you can actually push the brake pads in. And then actually be able to pull the pads out a lot easier, because the piston in the back here will actually make it a lot harder if you don't do that first, especially in the fronts. So I already did take an 8-inch. I used a C-clamp, I pushed them in, and that's why you're going to see this next part is so easy. So lift this up, brake pads. Close that back. Go back to the top one. Now, I will warn you, like especially if you took the bottom one out, be warned that obviously once you get this one out, I've had this fall almost a couple times on me. So just kind of go at it slow and get it by hand. Use your other hand to support it. And you'll know when that is. You'll feel it. Felt pretty good to me. We'll see if I'm right. There we go. Lift it up, lift it around, pull it up, pull it down. There we go. Clean my guide pins off again. One thing of note, and I looked in this in the documentation, I looked online, I really couldn't find anything. So your caliper guide pins, some of them have this little black boot at the end. I found through my research it's supposed to go on the top. They don't say it in the service manual. I looked online and a lot of people don't even talk about it, but there is a distinction, because if you look at the other one, there's no little black rubber piece. So I'll hold both up so you can see. There you go. So black one again, for me, from what I've read, understand it goes on the top. And the bottom, this bottom one without the little plastic piece or rubber piece goes at the bottom. So call that out, because that was something that took me a while to lace. Now, like I said, these boots, I'm not too worried about them. I'm replacing them mostly because you usually use like some sort of thermal paste, or not thermal paste, sorry, some moly grease. I'm actually using silicone, which actually extends the life of the boots, and then also works a lot better because it's a rubber product, or silicone synthetic based product, rubber product. So I'm going to be replacing those later, but that's going to be on the installation and reassembly. So the next part, which I don't know if you can see well, is basically after we remove the caliper clamp off the external piece, and we still have the bracket in place, we're going to go ahead and put a screwdriver in to the bracket inside the rotors, inside the slots, to hold it in place while we actually go ahead and remove the axle nut. Now this is important because you could either do this through the wheel with the actual rim and everything on it, because there's a cap. I'll show you that real quick. That little Ford emblem cap you can pop out through the backside after removing a little metal ring and then using a flathead screwdriver to pop out the plastic cover. You can do it that way, or you can do it this way. To me, my wheels are kind of cosmetic, so I try not to do too much around them. And this is really easy because I'm replacing my rotors, and I'm going to repaint and resurface all my calipers anyway, so I really didn't care. So I recommend the flathead with the rotors and the caliper mount bracket. And then go ahead and take a braking bar, because this thing is like torqued down, like I said, I think about 198 foot-pounds. I'll double check, but it doesn't matter really for taking it off, it matters putting it back on. But anyways, then a 32 millimeter extend socket, which I don't know if you can see that well, so 32 millimeter socket. Nice part is once you get it here, you can see it locks right there, and then all you have to do is use this. Now again, I've loosened all this, so it's going to come off easy. I believe I did have to use a cheat on this, so just be aware that you may have to put more energy in than that. And then that's it for me. So that's it, and the nut comes loose. I let it come all the way out to the edge, because we'll get to that later. We'll actually use the axle puller. But once you get it to the edge, that's where we're going to mess with it after we get the rotor and the caliper bracket off. So, and I basically put it right to the edge of it so it's flush. And we'll go over why later, but that's just what I do. So take out the flathead, done. Move the socket, done. Go to the 18 millimeter, which I don't think we'll use the extension. And again, like I told you about making the thing work with you, huge, so I'm gonna go to the right. So I'm gonna push far left, come back behind here, and hopefully you can see this pretty well. So I got two 18 millimeters here, right on where my finger is, and then one up here, which you can't. Yeah, right up there. Let's get that a little further up so you can see maybe better. So yeah, I got one 18 millimeter here, one 18 here. That's gonna hold on the caliper bracket. So again, I've already did all this. It's all loose, so this is really easy. I am gonna go ahead and do the bottom first. Like I said before, I tend to find that the bottom one, I don't know. I'm not worried about losing the bottom one. It's the top one because I had it like flip back on me, where it like flips over like that, and then you know it falls down, hits the ground, or just falls off completely. So again, these are all really easy. These are not torqued, so don't be surprised. So I'm gonna do the bottom one first. Take that out. That's done. Take the top one, hold onto the bracket, it doesn't fall. That's done. Let's set that aside. So next we got the rotor. The rotor actually has the torque screw, so we'll have to muck with that. So, see that. So right here is the torque screw. So we're dealing with that next. That's going to be the T40. Like I said, this thing's a pain in the ass because getting it on just right is a nightmare. I mean, I've done this like 4 or 5 times now, I swear. And every time I deal with this thing, it either comes off, it doesn't go on right, it doesn't come off easy. I don't know, like maybe the quality of the metal is just really cheap, so it just seems like just give way more flexibility than it should. And again, you see how this just pops right out, so be careful that it doesn't fall and smack you or anything, hurt you. So put that torque screw there, put the T40 hex tool back down. We'll pull this out and move this, set this aside. Alright, so now you can see we got access to the wheel hub. With our 3 studs. So one other thing, I don't know if I showed, probably did not, but there is actually way back here, there is the ABS sensor. So hopefully you can see that where my finger is. It does take an 8 millimeter socket wrench, so I just used this tool to get that done. And then I just went in there, pulled it out. And again, this was already left loose, so this is pretty easy. Now I do tuck it away and set it aside to keep it out of the way when we're working on the rest. The rest is kind of a little more involved, obviously. So hopefully you can see that pretty well. So we're gonna ignore the studs for now. The main reason why is because even if we hit out the stubs, there's not enough clearance here to get them out, as you can see. So I mean, the studs are like my finger length. You're gonna get about half, maybe a quarter of that length. So the next piece we're going to look at is the slide hammer and the axle puller. And that's going to be the piece that separates the wheel hub from the axle. I'm trying to think here. Now before we do that, so I'm trying to think when to say this part. So there are 4 screws in the back. Those are going to actually come off when we need to muck with the hub, so we're going to leave those on for now. I'll call that out later why, because that's a nightmare. I learned from that one. So the first thing we're going to do is work on separating the hub from the axle, which connects through it. And it's got a set of just flat blades. It's not a screw, it just goes straight in. And again, none of this stuff they use NIC, so when I go back through, I'll put NIC's material on it. So let me set that up. Doesn't take too long. Gonna grab the puller, I don't know if you can see that. And then you need 3 lug nuts, and then you need the hammer. Now, for me, this was a little tight, but I wasn't really too worried because for me, I was gonna replace the sockets anyways. But you can see it, like it was a little tight. I think it is a little more designed, obviously, to go outside the wheel well, across the wheels. But I was able to actually play with it enough, and actually I was able to get it to go in. And without having harm. Now this one, again, I don't know why, like I said, for me, the first time I did this, I did not trouble. The second time, it was a little harder. So I just kind of like put it up on one side, put it down the other, get it evenly balanced, and then kind of just hit it a few times. and you'll see it kind of centers out. Now, again, I would be concerned about this if you were gonna like keep the studs. But the whole point of this one is to actually replace the studs. So don't worry, because you're probably gonna damage the studs. Obviously, get the sucker in. So there it goes. It's flat. So next, I don't know if you can see it well, so I'm gonna scoot out a little bit. Use the puller or the slide hammer, and then we're gonna actually just screw that in. And actually, no, I apologize. Let me get the lug nuts on. So these are gonna hold the puller in place. And they don't need to be like super tight, I found, just definitely snugged. Trying to look for my tools. Oh, there it is. Missing. There are. Good old 19mm. So back to the 19mm socket. Again, just going for a light snug to begin with. Get them in place. Tighten them down a little bit later. Again, does not have to be super tight. Just make sure you are, when you're doing this, you are planning to actually replace the studs, because you will strip them a little bit. They will get a little damaged. But I found this to be the better way for me than putting it up on the wheel well. So, but again, that's my choice, I guess. So I want to do part 2 kind of the video of just showing like what I got back. Basically, I got the studs knocked out, used a hammer, just basically plowed them out. Got to be careful, make sure that you have an open slot in the back. And then I worked on cleaning this and tried really hard to do like using some metal brushes and stuff. I didn't really get what I wanted, but it is a lot cleaner than it was. And then I basically went to Napa and actually had them, after I bought the studs, press them in. So overall, I think it was like $10 for 5 studs, and then it was like another $8 to have them press it in. So $20 to use an existing hub wheel. And actually, I think it turned out pretty good. You can see from the back side that they're all seated, they're all flat. I'll try to give you a good angle for that, but yeah, it actually turned out really good. So I'll be putting it in next, but I just wanted to call that out because I've seen some people use some screw methods. I've seen some other people use some tools where you can actually use it's like a little, I forget what they call it. It's like a stud screw. Basically, it's like a filler you put underneath it. You put like a lug nut on top, and you can screw these into place. They're like 15, 20 bucks, whatever. But like I said, this was an actual press specifically designed for this. $8, and with brand new studs, I think it turned out phenomenal. So next thing we'll work on is actually start putting the hub wheel back into the axle, and we'll go from there. So thank you. So guys, we're getting ready to now go ahead and put the hub wheel on to connect it to the axle. The biggest thing to note here I want to point out is the fact that I did actually clean the whole insides, and you can see all the way around. It's pretty much, it's hard to get a good angle on the sucker, but basically I cleaned the best I could on the insides using some 220 grit sandpaper, and then also cleaned the axle itself. The biggest thing I want to point out on this is just make sure it's as clean as possible, because once we put on the lubrication for the anti-seize, you don't want to have to worry about maybe it's sort of connecting to junk and then maybe it's not getting actually a good connection or a good prevention. Because the goal is we don't want this to seize up later. So first thing I'm going to do is probably go ahead and put the anti-seize around the sides and put it on the base. Not that it really matters that much in that order, but I'm using 3mm copper anti-seize. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but I like 3M products. I think they're pretty good stuff. So yeah, and this one's also rated up to high performance lubricant, withstands high temperature up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit or 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm gonna move this out of the way just in case. I'm just gonna go ahead and start applying this, and this stuff is kind of like paste. It's got a wheel, you can kind of see it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start applying this on the inside and go from there. Kind of all more here. I'm gonna squeeze this, brush it again. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, nice little mess. And just in case you're wondering, it is curved. You can tell. I actually try with grabbing it, make sure I got actually a good grease fitting on it. It's probably way more than you need, like a crap load more than you need, but for me, it was easier to put on my hands than it was to keep trying to move it around the brush. So I'm gonna have a little extra, it's fine. I really don't care. Again, most of it's just for prevention. All right. So one other thing to note before we get too much further, before we connect the hub wheel, is I did notice there was a discoloration on here, which looks like they used some form of Loctite or something. So I have some Loctite. You can see that I'm actually going to go ahead and apply to the end of these, and then push these in, and then basically then put the hub wheel on, so it'll be easier to get them in. Because I find with the hub wheel on, you can't pull them out, and then if you actually go ahead and like put about generous amount of there, if you go ahead and put the Loctite on first and then put them in there, they seem to hold better. At least that's, or they seem to get in and out easier, at least what I noticed. So like I said, I'm going to put the Loctite on first, shove them in, then put the hub wheel on. Okay, that looks pretty good. You don't need a lot, just enough to one side. This one actually looks like a pretty good example. I'm not sure how you can see that. It's like a straight line, one side should be fine. So now I'm going to go ahead and put them back in. Straighten the wheel, and then they'll connect the hub back on. All right, straight, have reorganized. Gotta lift this back in place. Grab from the back. So the biggest thing is just make sure that you don't actually get a good angle on this. The biggest thing is just make sure that you don't actually you just get it basically lined up with the axle. So it should slide right in. You can feel it. Then set this back into place. Make sure your holes line up on top and bottom. Make sure their bolts are seated at least decently. You may have to go at it a couple times. Back them out, pull it forward. This looks pretty good to me. Yeah, I can feel it kind of seating. It's not perfect yet, but it actually feels pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and just pull on just a little bit more. Yeah, okay. So what I'm gonna do now is actually work on the back lip bolts. And I'm just gonna like loosen them. And I know you're thinking that's kind of weird. You want to tighten them, not loosen them, right? I loosen them first just so I can hear that little thunk. You might have just heard that. So then I know I'm going the right path. I'm not stripping the screws or anything like that. And I'm just hand tightening right now. So I have it held up tight. I'm pushing against it. And I'm going to go loosen. And listen. Make sure it's pushed flat. This one is struggling for some reason. Pull this back out real quick. Yeah, this one for some reason is a little tighter. Let's start with the bottom lift. Go ahead and loosen that one too. First path here. Yeah, so my mistake, I was actually going backwards. It's tightening. There it is. Okay, so I heard the thump. Means it's got fresh on the track. They're probably doing the same exact thing. The other one. So again, I'm just going for snug. So the first two, upper right I did. Now this is the bottom left I'm doing. Upper right was snug. Bottom left I'm doing now snug. Check again the upper right. Yeah, it's a little tight, but as you expected. Now I'm gonna go back up and do the upper left. ABS sensor, I just kind of let it hang off to the side again for a while until I get ready for it. So, because I'm facing it going clockwise. There it goes. I think that was it. We'll just loop one more time to make sure. There it is. Okay. So this upper left one for me was always a lot harder. Getting sockets in there was a nightmare. I don't know, just overall, this one definitely I've struggled a lot more with. Once it's in, it's not so bad because you can get a socket back around. It's just getting it in there. That one's pretty good. Bottom right, just made it. Alright, see that one already coming out. See the bottom one through. So the ones that look like they're not quite through all the way is the top ones. Just fine. I can see part of it. I'll go ahead and start finishing those off with the 18mm. Just getting them snug still. Let's see. We'll torque these to spec next, but just want to at least get them snug. I have good fitting. And again, I always try, it may seem like it takes more work, but I always try to make sure that they're balanced when I do it. So whatever, got most of them done on one side, I try to go back and do them on the other side too. And this back one is really just not that easy to get into. Got like 3/4 of it on there. Trying to get a wrench there, but couldn't get any better angles, so just take your time on this one. Okay, that's a little snug. Alright, so top, bottom are snug. Sorry, the top is snug. Let's check the bottom. Bottom's pretty good. Hand tightened down almost all the way in. Bottom left looks like I go a little tighter. He's got a better angle on this. Turn the light on. Hopefully that helps. Blinding you guys too much, but you can see. Okay, so that's snug. Cool. So, next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna tighten this down to, I got my cheat sheet in front of me, I wrote it down here. This one is gonna be 122 foot-pounds torque. Hey guys, so to get to that last one, which is this hard one way up here, I kind of learned, I'm sure you can even see my hands. Can you see that? No, you can't. Okay, hold on. Still can't see that. Alright. How about that? Can you see that? You see where I'm pointing? Right there. Yeah, right there. Okay. So the nut is right here. To get to this, I had to play with two other things. I couldn't quite get this to work. So one, I didn't have the ground clearance to get my breaker bar. I don't know if you can see this. My breaker bar with 122 pounds set in, down, below, around. So I had to jack it up to the max. And even then put another piece of wood underneath the jack. And then also what I had to do was rotate this little piece of metal. So I did have to pull the hub back out. I don't know if you can see this little piece of metal right here. My middle finger's pointing at. There's anyways, there's one little piece here actually does rotate with the axle. So if it rotates, say 2 inches more, then it gives you about a 1/4 inch, I don't know, yeah, about a 1/4 inch of height, where to get to that bolt, you will not be able to because your tools will be like slightly offset. So what I do is pull the hub back out, rotate the axle so it sits in the middle with this piece right here. And then once I was in the middle, I was able to, let's see, how did I do this? Pull the hub out, pull the axle back, put the bolts in, not all the way, rotated the axle so it was to the middle, then put the hub back in, and then re-bolt everything down. And then once trying to bolt down this one, which was the hardest part, so you can see that, this one right here, it was the hardest part. I didn't have enough ground clearance to do it, so what I ended up having to do, like I said, jack up the vehicle, so that I could actually get in there and get this torque wrench underneath it. Now, even to get this torque wrench underneath, I struggled. So what I ended up doing actually was kind of, it's a little convoluted. I'll try to show you what I did. I went around the side, underneath, then back around underneath, up and over. So it kind of looked like something like that. I don't know if you can really kind of see what I'm trying to show you. Flip that around. So it kind of goes like this, and then as you can see, the bar hangs out, and it kind of hangs out over here. So I had to do that just to get enough space. Again, if you jack it up high enough, you could probably go at it straight. Give me a sec. I like the way. Don't have free hands. If you jack it up high enough, then you probably can actually just go at it from down below, which is what I was trying to do, right down here. And that kind of works. I mean, it does work, but you just need a little bit more space. You have to jack it up higher. So yeah, I lowered it. That's it for the hub wheel. The hub. Let's see here. Let me double check real quick what I got. I think that's where we're at for now. Let me get this out. So we got the hub wheel. We got the axle interconnected to the hub wheel. We got the wheels down. We do have the torque nut. We can put it in. The drive axle. We're not quite ready to torque it down, obviously, yet, but we can put it in. And the banjo we're not doing yet. The calipers we're not doing yet. The metal splash guard we're not doing yet. The wheel hub bearings we just did. The wheel lug nuts we're not doing yet. And the wheel speed sensor, bolt, or ABS. We can do that now. So the wheel speed sensor, or ABS sensor, is actually this piece right up here. Let's see if you can see this. So it's that piece right there where this is going to go back into. So all I'm going to do is torque that down to 133 inch pounds. Put pounds. Inch pounds. That's important. So I'm doing 133 inch pounds right now. Yep. It's already set. See if I can get like a spacer real quick for my 1/4 inch extension bit. See if this works. I don't think it'll be too long, so it should work. The nice thing is it'll keep me closer, but far enough away where it's not hitting other stuff. So we'll see. I need 8. A smaller 8. Bear with me a sec. Okay, so there we go. A smaller 8. You can still see what I'm trying to do here. It's kind of a little low height so you can't see, but all I'm going to do is screw this in. And this is an 8. And I'm going to be torquing this to 100. Where's the paper? Pull all this out of the service manual. Some of it I actually had to call forward. So this is the wheel speed sensor bolt for ABS. It's 133 inch pounds. Mine goes to 133. You can just see right there. It goes to 133 and it's inch pounds. So hopefully that's not too movement for you. Anyways, so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and torque that down now. Actually fix one more thing real quick.
hand first. Go backwards. Until I can feel it. There it goes. Okay. Now forwards. I can't stress again enough, make sure you wear eye protection. While doing this, while grinding and sanding and using brake cleaners and stuff, I've been lucky more than several times. I've accidentally already sprayed brake cleaner in my face just by trying to rush and do stuff because it's like 100 degrees here right now in Portland. And then just, yeah, you never know what's just going to happen. You don't want to be on the receiving end when it does. I'm kind of lucky. I literally sprayed the brake cleaner right in my face and actually would have gone to my eyes if I wasn't wearing glasses. So, yeah, never think you need it. I'm at least one of those kind of people. And then since I started working on auto work more and more, I just keep finding myself wearing protective gear. And man, all I can say is it'll save your eyes and maybe save your life. So just wear it. Okay, so there we go. Yep. Okay, so that's done. 133 inch-pounds of torque. So let's move to the next piece. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna put on is the splash guard. As you can see, it's it's pretty straightforward. It's going to be the same torque, 133 inch-pounds. Again, the only thing to call out, or at least I call out, is this one top screw, which I don't know if you have a good angle to see. That one right there, where my thumb is, right down here, is probably the hardest one to get to. Again, just because basically, just to get in there, you gotta have to use a small use a wrench. I can't get any socket tools in there, so just be patient. And I'm gonna work on these real quick. Again, I'm gonna start going backwards until I hear thread. Okay. Got one holding in place. Make sure these were threaded properly. You can tell without just having an extra one to hold it's kind of hard. Strip screws before, not cool, not fun to deal with either, so call me extra paranoid. Okay, these two are done. Just get them snug. And then the last one, the fun one. Cool. I'm gonna work on this one real quick. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten the rest down. I just want to make it a little easier. Not gonna go completely tight yet or torque to spec, just snug. It'll make it easier to get that top one in. Like I said, I always like to match them, so get them all snug first, then tighten down. warm today. All right, so let's check this. These are gonna do the spec. It's 133 inch-pounds. It's 2. That's 3. Like I said, last one I can't get to it, so I just kind of do it by hand. That feels pretty good to me. Okay. Alright, so next what we're going to do is we're going to put the rotor and then the T40 screw in to hold the rotor in place. Notice again I got the screw at the very bottom here. I can readjust this so it's straight, but I'll probably readjust it here in just a minute anyways, back to where it was, so it's fine. Alright. So make sure the screw hole is in the right location. Yep, looks good to me. Now, if this looks clean to you, it's because I did clean it. I do plans to replace this, but for now, this was the main thing I was just looking to do is get it in, and that way I can kind of complete one project, come back, do another one later. So, again, going opposite way. Just make sure I hear that. There it is. And this one, like I said, I struggle with this, so unless you put it at the bottom, it seemed to be, I don't know, almost impossible to do it anywhere else. At least that's what I learned. It still feels a little off. Hold on. There it goes. Now, I looked online for this, I looked at my manual, and I couldn't find any actual torque specs, and a lot of people just said, just torque it down by hand, and just wait to just get it to feel tight, just not over tightened, because it's more of a, I don't know if I want to call it a safety, it's more just a way to keep the rotor in place while doing it. A lot of other rotors don't have it, but Ford puts it on theirs, which is fine. The other thing I wanted to do, which I haven't done yet, and I wanted to wait till I got the rotor in, was go ahead and put the axle nut on. We're not going to torque it to spec. We're basically just going to get it in there for now and just have it kind of hold in place, because eventually we're going to need to pull that axle forward, and we're only going to be able to do that after we torque it. So just want to start ahead. You can tell there's already thread locker on the one I've got, and holy crud. Start tightening this down my finger, I can feel it already, it's kind of kicking into place. So guys, we're going to continue on where we're left at. Basically we've already got the rotor on and the shield guard on. Next thing we're going to do is work on getting the caliper back in so we can put the brake pads in place and move forward. So as of right now, we got the caliper torn apart. I've cleaned it, not the best. I plan later on doing a better job, but right now I just want to kind of finish this project up, and I could come back and take the brake pad and the rotors and the rotor bracket off, caliper and the caliper bracket off, and do a better job cleaning it. So I did get actually some new guide pins. I also got some new clips, even though I still using the old pads, and new boots, mostly because I'm switching from using the like moly paste to actually switching to like not thermal paste but silicone paste. I got some of that right here. Mostly because I've heard and read on other forums that they actually recommend it with plastic parts. Silicone works better with silicone products instead of the moly grease that comes with most products you buy. So yeah, I pretty much swapped it all out. I grinded it down a little bit. Like I said, this could be better, but this is good enough for now, I think. I sprayed some brake cleaner in here. I used some Q-tips to kind of clean it out, get rid of all the dirt. And so now pretty much what I'm going to do is start putting in the new caliper or the brake pad clips and just start seating those so we can put the brake pads back in place. So these go in really easy. As you can see, they just kind of slide in. Some of them had to play with a little bit, but they're usually pretty straightforward. It's always famous last words, right? There we go. So these are all done. Next thing I usually would do is actually, in the past, I would actually put like anti-seize
inside here or here. I'm not gonna do that, mostly because the fact that I find it's easier just to put them on the brake pad as long as you're careful and you make sure you don't actually put them all on the brake pads. So what I'll do next is actually, before I even get to that far, right, I'm just actually work on mounting the caliper bracket. And I did actually get some new screws, new guide pins, the boots. Oh, got a little rubber piece here that needs to go on. Oh, that's gonna be fun to get on. Just twist it on. It looks like it kind of went on there pretty well. I'll play with it a bit, get it to stretch out. There it goes. There you go. One brand new guide pin and one new other guide pin. Biggest thing I would say also, we'll get to it later, is the notifications of where these actually go. The lock pin versus the guide pin. It's kind of funny to me how I talked to, well, I went online, read a lot of different forums. Nobody has figured this out, and this goes back to 2000. So I'll get more into it later. But the short version is, I had to go through 2 different dealerships, talk to their technicians, go through their Ford service manuals, contact Ford Direct, and then order parts that I didn't necessarily need, just to find out the answer. So we'll get to that next, but at least for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and get the boots in place. I already got the the iron, the shims, if you will, for the brake pads in place. And try this to seat in there. There we go. That's pretty good. Okay. Now, I plan to actually replace this whole thing anyways and just buy brand new calipers. But since this was kind of a process for me to like actually get all this stuff in, and then I had to fix some other stuff, I figured, you know what, I don't want to take on too much at one time. So for now, I just put in new boots, got new guide pins, and then reuse the old brakes, and that'll be it. So next thing I'm going to work on is actually mounting the caliper bracket to the rotor itself and the wheel. So cool.
So what I'm going to do is just put one into place to hold it, just one bolt, and then what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to put Loctite on these to hold them in place when I put them in. So just got one already in, going to go ahead and move to the next. And I didn't put Loctite on that one yet just because I needed something to hold it in place. Put a generous amount of Loctite on there. That much. Again, I'm just going to like loosen it in until it feels like it's right. There it goes. Sounds good. That sucker snug. And then we'll rinse and repeat from the top. Right. At the top. I think these were 17 millimeter. Let me check. Nope, these were the 18s. Some 18. My ½ inch. We're just tightening these down. Oh, extensions needed. Yeah, those are snug. And then we are going to need to torque those down. So those are going to be the caliper mounting bracket bolts for the front of a 2013 and later model. I've got those down as 122 foot-pounds. Yep, 122 foot-pounds. So let's see what we got here. 122. Alright, so doesn't really matter where you want to start. Start at the top. Stand up for this, it's a little tight. A little tight, a little hard, I should say.
Cool. So that gets the mounting bracket in place. Next we're going to work with is the brake pads and the caliper itself. Let's see here. Yeah, I guess we just go ahead and put that in right now. Okay. So what I'm going to do actually is go ahead and pre-grease the guide pins. So debating whether or not to do it now or wait till after I get it in, but I guess it really doesn't matter much. I just figured I might get a better lubrication if I can actually just get it in now and then kind of guide it in a few times. So I'm just going to go ahead and grease the hell out of the sucker. That's probably a little too much. But this is also brand new. I did clean this out, so probably a little bit more isn't horrific. So I'm going to throw this in the top. It's going to get a little messy. There it goes. Oh, and I should say, how do you know these go in the top? So you see that little rubber piece at the end of it, the little black piece? So I actually did a lot of research on this, trying to figure out what the correct answer is. The short version is, after almost, oh God, I think it's since 2000, I was finding out no one really knew the answer to this. And I actually did research online and nobody could find the answer and blah, 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 blah. So then I talked to 2 Ford dealerships, talked to the service departments, talked to the technician, talked to the general managers. I pretty much talked to everybody I could talk to. And finally what I came up with was nobody knew. It wasn't documented, it wasn't clear. Even the technicians, their answers were, you know, hey, we basically just take it out and put it in the way it came out. I'm like, well, okay, that's good. I get that. That makes sense. But what if someone's been walking around who doesn't know what they're doing? Or what if you get them mixed up, right? And you just, you know, heaven forbid, shit happens. You get busy. You get a call. You go to lunch. And, you know, things get misplaced. Their answers were surprisingly, again, the same. It was just like, well, you know, then we'd compare it to the other one. I'm like, well, what if the other one was put in wrong? So it kind of surprised me in the answer because, you know, at any point, any person could have done something wrong, right? I mean, they could have... Someone could have worked on it, it could have had a bad day, they could not have just cared. They could have put it backwards. It could have been repetitive. A homeowner, you know, or someone like myself who just monkeys around on their own vehicles, you know, plays with it, couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. And then basically they just kept trying and trying and trying, and they couldn't get it to work, so they just, you know, just gave up, put it one direction, called it a day. So, I mean, to me, that answer was very unhelpful. So I ordered some parts, and it came with a little guide. And I'll do a separate video on it because I don't want to waste the time. But there's a guide where they actually talk about how specifically these are used, or how the lock pin goes to the top, the guide pin goes to the bottom, and the lock pin is closest to the bleeder screw, which is up here at the top. I don't know if you can see my finger. So the bleeder screw sits like right up here where my finger is, and then obviously the locking pin is on the top and the guide pin is on the bottom, and the locking pin has the rubber boot. So it was clear, it was defined in Ford. It's just oddly enough no one Ford knew, no Ford service manuals were there. You had to order the parts for a replacement kit to find out, and obviously you can see how many people have done that. So cool. So let me get the caliper in next. Now, as you can see, I kind of just put these in. I played with them a little bit. Added way too much grease, as you can tell. But that's fine, they'll work their way out. The biggest thing is I wanted to make sure that, since this is brand new, I wanted to over-grease and under-grease because the grease will just come out. So I really didn't care that much. I just wanted to make sure, especially being a new set and everything, that it was good lubrication in and out, and then the boots were pretty well covered too. Because, like I said, I cleaned everything and I got brand new boots. So I just want to make sure that they weren't too light, and they look pretty good to me. And again, like I said, I'm going to pull these, I'm going to replace this caliper anyways later on the road, but I just wanted to make sure this was at least good for what it's supposed to be. So, cool. Alright, so we'll start with the top. That's what I usually do. It's a guiding to hold it in place. Pull these out like 15 times already, but whatever. Try not to damage the boots, and that's easier said than done. Like I said, for me it was easy. I wanted to get new boots because I looked at the other ones. I was using different materials, and I don't like to mix pastes, so it's just easier to go ahead and just put in new boots and new covers. Gonna need, I think, 17s for these. Yep, 17s. Okay.
Now, these will have a torque rating. I'm not torquing them down yet, obviously, but I'm just gonna get them snug. Mostly, because I still need to actually pop this one out to put the brake pads in, so that was stupid, but whatever. Bear with me here. Definitely don't think grease is gonna be a problem. Alright, looks good. There it goes. Back in. So next one we'll do is actually try to put the NSEs pretty much wherever it actually contacts with metal. So I'm gonna put some right there, a little around the ring. I put some on the sides already, so I just need to kind of like massage those into place. This is kind of what I did for the back side, or the piston side. So I'm just gonna rub it around. Again, try not to get it inside the on the brake pad itself. That is bad. Try to make sure you get those edges though, at least of the brake pad. Inside, outside, so make sure it slides easily. Cool, that looks pretty good. Time I do this, I gotta wipe my hands off because I try to apply not too much and I still end up applying way too much every time. So that's good. There it is. So we got both done. So now we have both brake pads in. I already decompressed the calipers obviously before, or pushed the pistons in when I was actually taking the caliper out. So that's pretty much it right there. Now we're just gonna close it and then we're gonna connect the guide pins. So, and we'll have to obviously connect the banjo clip, but again, that's kind of the next step. I'm gonna change gloves real quick. Just because I was dealing with copper underseas, I don't want to mix that with the silicone paste. By the way, I definitely have to look at buying automotive gloves. So I get these at Costco. It's like 200 pack for like 10 bucks, and they work hella amazing. So it's hard for me to like look at anything else when they're so cheap. They work great, but they are cheap. So what do you expect? I'm gonna add a little bit more silicone paste. Again, I'm sure I'm adding way more than I need to, but this thing is completely dry from what I put on it. I just want to make sure it's well lubricated. So put that back in there. Okay, looks good. So push this down, tighten it up. Check the boom, make sure it's nice and leveled, flat, smooth. Go ahead and remove this and add just a little more grease as well. Again, be careful it doesn't fall when you're doing this. That's why I always usually do the top one first, because it's just nice and easy to hold it. You don't have to worry about it slipping or anything like that, but taking it out, yeah, it's always a possibility. There it is. Yeah, it's pretty. That's what I thought. So like I pulled the other one out, and then after putting them in, after cleaning them, there's like nothing on them left. So I just want to make sure I've got a good amount. I'm sure the boot's probably taking some of that. I'm sure some of the screwing here is taking some of it too, but I still want it to go in. I want it to be lubricated very well. At least till I finish, right? Once I get to the next project where I replace my whole calipers and rotors and everything, it won't matter. But that's tomorrow. Today is today. So all right, let's tighten these back down. Checking the boot, make sure it looks good and leveled. Looks good. Again, not going tight, just snug. Then we'll torque these down to spec once you get a little further in.
those are good. So
now we're going to do the caliper guiding pins. This is for caliper mounting guide pin bolts for front 14-inch disc brakes, 55 pounds. And again, I'm calling all this stuff out because of the fact that I noticed this stuff while I was actually going through it, that they don't really define these well. I mean, I'm sorry, they over-define, meaning that in a good way. There's actually a lot of distinctions between these, and meaning that you got to be careful. So, like, I noticed if you have earlier than 2013, then you have different torque specs. If you have like later, then you just got to make sure you include what those specs are. So look them up. So I'm giving you what it is for 2014 Ford Explorer. So obviously this is not going to be throughout for everything. So bear with me here. Going down to 55 foot-pounds. That's 50 right there. This one actually does not do that. This one's either. I'll go to this one smaller. 55, 50, there's 50, and 55. I need converter. Give me 1 second. Thought I had all the stuff out, I guess put some of it away. This isn't what I want. There it is, not bad. That's what we need. Okay, so I go to 3/8, doing 55 pounds. The guide pins. Okay. You can see this. Get snug. There's 55. It's already snug. There's 55. So the next piece we're going to do, now that we got the bolts mounted, the guide pins torqued down to 55 pounds, we're going to do the banjo clip, which is going to be the brake line for the banjo bolt, for the front. So you can see I still have the actual hose over here hanging off to the side. I don't know if you can see, I got a little pincher still on that sucker right there. You see that? So basically what we're going to do is basically just reconnect the banjo bolt and then torque it down to 35 pounds. So bring that around, and actually, yeah, to make it easier, I'll just rotate it as well. And remember, the caliper is still loose in there because of the fact that we haven't actually pushed any brake fluid through it, so the pistons are still retracted. Bear with me here. Take this. I think this was not a 17 but a 14, if I'm correct. 14 millimeter. Yeah, it's 14. Okay. So 14 millimeter. And we'll need the extension. And just get it snug for now, 14. All right. See if we can do this by hand first, my bad. Keep it straight so you can get it to thread properly. There it goes.
Shoot. Gonna need my wrench for this. This torque. Come right at it. 14 millimeter, 35 foot-pounds. Just make sure it's straight. There it goes. Skin snug now. Okay, perfect. All right, I'm gonna double check that one more time. Looks good, but I just want to make sure. Yep, it does. Okay. Cool. So the banjo clip is in, got the brake line done. So just be aware, if you did take off the banjo clip, there's possibility to introduce air line into the brake. So you will need to actually bleed the brakes. I kind of want to show you how to do it now, if you've never done it. I'm just wondering if it's going to take up too much time. I know this has been a long video already. I'm going to hold off on that. There's many people that cover how to bleed brakes. Either you can use pumps, you can use whatever you want, but key is you do need to bleed the brakes though. So I'm actually going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and bleed the brakes right now. Yeah, I'm going to bleed the brakes right now. I got the tire off and everything right now. And I won't show you that. Like I said, you can there's videos how to do it. And then we'll go over the last few pieces, which is the hub wheel and etc. So give me a minute. Alright guys, so let's see, went through, popped the cap off, bled the bleeder brake. I did use the two-person method because I didn't have all the equipment ready to do the one person. I mean, I set it up for one, but I did it with two anyways, which is basically I had one person in the car, step on the brake, and then I took a 10 millimeter, went to here, loosened it up after they already applied the brake, pushed on the brake, let some brake fluid flow through until I noticed it stopped, tightened it back up, told them to let go, then tighten again, or then push down again on the brake pedal, and then once they tightened again, then I opened it up, let some brake fluid go by, and then tightened it back up, and then told them to release, and then push down again on the brake pedal, and rinse and repeat until I felt it was clean enough. Do make sure you watch your master cylinder, your brake fluid cylinder reservoir, to make sure that you keep it full at all times, and when you're all done, make sure that you only have about half of it full. So that's all done. We've greased it. Now we didn't torque that to spec, so again, this is not done. So the next piece that we're actually going to be doing is popping out the cap of the hub wheel of the tire before we put it on, and that way when we lower it, we can finally finish torquing this to spec and we are done. So next piece I'm going to show you is how to pop out that cap. It's really easy. I saw several different methods, but I'll get in that once we start. Alright, so next piece we're going to be doing is popping out the hubcap, which is this little cap right here inside. That'll give us access to the drive axle as we actually torque it down later once we put it down. So there's two things you're going to need. One, flathead screwdriver, just a normal flathead screwdriver. And then I use some pliers. I had some people I read online, they recommend actually using like, what do they call, like pick tools with like 90-degree angles. If that works for you, you can use those. I've got one I can show you. So I bought a set of these a while ago. I use these kind of very carefully on the inside of my car whenever I'm doing lights and stuff. I'm not sure if you can see kind of angles I got here on these pretty well, but I got a rounded one, a square one. I messed with these for a bit. I really could not get good angles, get a good grasp, and as you can see getting in here, I could get pieces of it to pull on. It works, I guess. Some people have done it. For me, the pliers is so flippin' easy. So find a piece that's short. I don't know if you can see right above my head, but this is where it actually disconnects. I'm gonna switch you around a bit here. You can see a little better. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can see this, but right here at the very end, it's just basically, it's a full circle except for there's like maybe I don't know, a quarter inch of it cut out. So you just need to find the end. I get a pair of pliers on it, and just get like anywhere in the middle or near the end. Bear with me here. And then I just pull and twist, and it comes right out for me. There you go, that's it, done. So to me, I use pliers. Again, I saw a lot of people online use picks. That's cool, you can use whatever you like. That's what I use. And then the last piece is actually just popping this piece out, little hubcap. I use a flathead, and then I just use some positive pressure underneath it, and it just really kind of work on every side, and that's it, you're done. So next piece we'll do is I'll show putting it back, connecting it to the tire, or sorry, connecting it to the wheel mount, wheel hub, and then yeah, we'll torque it down. So one piece before we actually get to putting the wheel on, I wanted to say, you know, this cap that we popped off and then the metal ring, because I'm always nervous about losing stuff, I kind of wanted to go ahead and just put that back inside. Really easy, just gotta slide it, find a corner. There's two pieces here that actually have corners. Get one side in there first, and then basically you just gotta push on the other side. And I can't remember if I had to use my pliers on this. Try not to do this too many times because it's plastic, so it's just gonna eventually just snap. But yeah, no, I just did it by hand. I could push it all the way in, I felt. Let's see, I got one side in, the other side's being a little stubborn. Let me grab those pliers and see if I can just put some positive pressure on it. Let's see, where's the end? Where's the end? There's the end, okay. There it goes. Let's see, is everything else sitting out? So, a piece of this is actually sitting a little off, so pushing that down. There it goes. That's it. So this piece now is all set in the right areas. It's good to go. So we're ready when we put the hub wheel, wheel on to actually just snap this back into place. But like I said, it's just, again, it's kind of nice sanity because once this is done and it's already back in place, like when you pop it off, you don't have to worry about losing the ring, stepping on it, breaking it. Not that's a big concern, breaking it, but for me, things do tend to wander in my house. So putting it together, when you're done, we're just gonna pop it in to like 2 seconds. So we'll get to that next. This is pretty much the last piece. So now we'll put the wheel on. I light it up. Slide it in with your feet, I guess that makes it easier for me. And then raise it. Got it kind of centered, it should be easy. I think it's a little off. I did actually raise my jack a little bit too, so it's gonna work against me. Alright, then once you get on there, just go ahead, put one screw in the very bottom, because it obviously tends to bow outwards. Again, I'm loosening first. There it goes. Just hold it in place. Go ahead. Get your 19mm. Just gonna hand tighten these just briefly. Again, star pattern, very important. Let's see, that didn't do right. Let's do that again. There it goes. I'm not tightening these all the way down, I just want these loose, but I want them in there at least. Especially since the tire's still kind of wobbling, as you can see. Since I had also new studs, I bought some new hub lug nuts. The other ones are pretty bad and banged up. Plus I figured they're probably like already pre-stripped a little bit. So I figured it'd be easier just to put new ones on. They weren't expensive. Again, try to stay in a star pattern if you can. Ooh, that was interesting. What was that? Just stop rotating. That was kind of weird.
flip that. I usually try to pawn it when I do this, so. I know they got gears inside. Heaven knows they use this thing enough. Pretty snug. Oh wow, yeah, this thing, I don't know. This is got a lot of play now. I'm a little nervous about this. I may have to just replace this or fix this. That's pretty bad. It's starting to rock a little too much. Definitely use this thing on everything though. Let's go back over again, just make everything snug. Yeah, we're not torquing yet, we're just snugging down. Okay, that's good. And when we do, we'll torque this down to 100 foot-pounds. So that is about it, actually. So we got them tightened. I feel pretty good. I haven't gotten this to 100 pounds yet, so let me work on that. Still got it set at 258. Just kind of skipping a step. Drop it down to 100 foot-pounds for the wheel lug nuts. There it is. It's going to be 90 plus 10, it looks like, for this one. 90 plus 10, there you go, 100. So, next one to do is actually clean up a little bit, lower the car down, and let it sit down on the wheel. And then we'll tighten the axle nut, and we'll tighten the lug nuts, and then we'll tighten the axle nut. We're done. Cool. So we're almost there. We got the tire lowered. We're gonna need to torque down to 100 foot-pounds on the wheel, on the lug nuts. I already got that set, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start doing that. Again, I would start in the bottom and then work my way around. Do start pattern. And when you're there, you'll hear a nice little bump like that. Two out of three, not bad. Or two so far. Haven't had any pop or break off yet, that's a plus. Especially since we just replaced all these damn studs. Alright, and usually when I'm done, I go back through one more time just to make sure. Sometimes you tighten one, it loosens. The other ones might have been a little looser. So these are all pretty much so far so good. Yep, that's it, we're done. So those 100 foot-pounds on the lug nuts. Last piece is the axle nut. And this, we're maxing the sucker out. So like I said, it's going to be 258 foot-pounds, so it's going to take me a while. Alright. 230. Go 20 more. There's 250. The last one. 258. There we go. 258. Hope I won't need an extension bit on this. It's actually kind of tight. So, try this again. There it goes. Actually, I'm gonna need an extension on that.
So I used a breaker bar because it was definitely tight. Not even a question. Definitely was tight. So I'm wondering if I might have accidentally over-torqued it before. I can't believe I did it, but apparently I did. Trying to get a good angle. Put my body weight on this pretty solid. There it is. So that's 248 pounds or 258 pounds torque. So last piece. Put the fork cap. Oh, you did use a rubber mallet on this. Maybe a little safer than your hands, but can't use my rubber mallet. That's it. We are done. So I gotta say, this project, which was just a timing belt change, it was taking basically a day to do, turned into a stub wheel replacement, and I'll do the timing belt later, but the short version is, I'm trying to think what to say. I didn't have all the tools I thought I needed, or I thought I had all the tools I needed. I found there were some things I was missing, extensions, etc. So I went through this thing like, I think I spent about a week, maybe a week and a half on this because I had parts missing and other stuff. One other thing I would have done, and I've already ordered them, so I'll deal with it later, is this bleeder screws. Mine's a 2014, it's over 4 years old. I know they usually recommend you replace your brake fluid or flush your brake fluid after 3,000, or I'm sorry, after 3 years. I did not do that. I did empty it through this one. I'm eventually going to replace the rotors and everything anyway, so I'll just do it then for all of them. But I did make sure I bled enough that the reservoir was clean. So now it's just probably some bad brake fluid going down to each individual tire, which, like I said, my next project's to replace that. So I'm not too worried about it. But the bleeder screw on this was definitely not clogged, but it was definitely a little dirty. More than a little dirty. It had rust on it, and it was deposits and stuff. It wasn't the worst I've ever seen, but definitely needed attention. And I'm going to replace the bleeder screws on these, at least till I replace my calipers, because I think they're like $3 a piece. So that is it. That's a complete wheel hub replacement on a 2014 Ford Explorer Limited, 3.5 liter, heavy duty brake pads, rotors, and then the timing belt and alternator. Like I said, I'm going to do the timing belt later. I got the fasteners already ordered, so I'll rip apart this wheel again and I'll redo it. That'll give me time to double check to make sure everything's spec. I'm gonna go take it for a drive here right now and just make sure everything sounds good. The pistons on the caliper for the brake pads look like they fully did retract, so I don't feel worried there. The axle, like I said, that one was a little interesting. I expected more of a challenge for 258 pounds, but it wasn't that bad actually. If anything, I overdid it by hand, so probably what I'd say is when you hand torque this down, like using a flathead screwdriver, I figured 258 pounds, I'd have to just, even if I wrenched on it hard, I would never come close. Apparently I came a lot closer than I thought. So just go easy on that. And that's it. I'm going to put the video together for you guys, try to make it easy, quick, and follow. Otherwise, have a good day. Thanks. Bye.